everyone. My name is Renee, and you are listening to the Body and Mind Strong podcast, where we talk all things life, fitness, and health. I am so glad you're here today because this next episode is one I'm really excited about, and I think you're really going to love it too. I'm sitting down with Amy Jones, and trust me, you won't want to miss what she has to say. Amy Jones is a certified functional nutrition practitioner and a certified ADHD life coach. She works with neurodivergent and overwhelmed adults who are trying to make food, energy, and self-care feel more manageable in real life. Her work looks at how nutrition, executive function, nervous system regulation, stress, hormones, burnout, and daily routine all affect a person's ability to follow through on the things they already know would support their health. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to my podcast or tell someone else about it. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if this episode resonates with you and you're ready for more clarity, balance, and support in your wellness journey, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at www.bodyandmindstrong.com. And stay tuned for more episodes on helping you create a healthier, happier, stronger life for yourself. And make sure you're doing at least one thing today that will get you one step closer to one of your goals. Now, without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Amy. Awesome. We are on finally. Okay, welcome, Amy. I'm so excited to have you on today on Body and Mind Strong podcast.
I am so excited to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
And I'm excited we finally hit record because we've been talking for at least a half an hour. Like we started going down all these tangents and so I think this is going to be a really awesome interview today. And I'm just so excited here because I know we're just going to be talking about so many things and I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be an adventure. We don't know where it's going to go.
Yes, which is awesome. All right. Well, tell us a little bit about who you are. Who's Amy?
So I'm a functional nutritionist. I am a certified ADHD life coach. I'm also a certified teacher. I taught high school for 20 years.
What grade?
And grades 7 to 12. So this is in Canada.
Okay.
And I thought, and I wanted to be a teacher from the time I was like 6 years old. Like this was like a big life goal. Like this was my career. This is like who I am. I defined myself by that 24/7. And every single thing I did in my life was towards that. And then I got there and I went through it. And it was not easy, let me tell you, but there's opportunities for learning in there, which is really important to me. Learning has always been a huge part of who I am. And I loved also structure and routines and like predictable systems that I was used to, right? Because you just go through school and then you go into more school and that felt safe, right?
Yeah.
So I think like in terms of my journey, I have a wonderful supportive partner who supports everything I do. And I have 2 boys. But I think a lot of my learning and a lot of the reason why I shifted between teaching to now nutrition and ADHD coaching is because of my family. So my youngest son was diagnosed with ADHD and ASD. The other son has sensory and definitely neurodivergent wiring in there too. But around that same time, my youngest son was diagnosed. I was like, oh, wait, what? And I reflected back, like, I think I've been in therapy for like, I don't even know how many years, since I was 20 at least. And I struggled with anxiety. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, BPD, like you name it. I had the label. And I say had very intentionally because I don't feel like that was who I was because it was too many things. And finally, when I took a step back and looked at this and then reevaluated the ADHD piece, became much more clear that could be a source. And I'm not, it's not necessarily 100% true, could be a source of why the anxiety was there, why the depression, why the struggles with so many things, and just always feeling like, why can everybody else do this? But I can't, you know? So that was a big part of my journey and learning. And I think that is definitely what spurred on in terms of like me shifting in terms of career.
And I find it really interesting because it is true, because as my background is a mental health counselor, there is a lot of overlapping going on, and some things are they blend in with each other. And I, from personal experience too, is you can have anxiety and the side effects to anxiety can look like depression, even though you don't have it. But they'll diagnose you with it even though you don't have it because it's the side effects too. Because you think about ADHD and anxiety, your adrenaline is running. You're running high. And what happens to a car that's running high or anything that runs hot, like a computer, it has to shut down for a bit and to cool off. And so our minds and our bodies are the same way. And so it's really interesting that you said that you were diagnosed with all these things, but you think it was really just the ADHD, which I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And those were the side effects of the undiagnosed ADHD,
Hmm.
especially from from a girl's perspective, from a women's perspective, like,
Hmm.
and the questions that I was walked through were, and I had to go back. I mean, I've worked with psychiatrists for the majority of my life very closely. And just the questions that he was asking were, I was like, but this is not the right question. Like I felt like there
Hmm.
was something else. But in the end, obviously, and I think it was just through like just me being, giving him all of the things that I needed to say around like my experience as a child and all the way up to where I am now, that he was like, okay, so now we're understanding that it looks different in
Hmm.
women,
Hmm.
definitely, and girls, which was really empowering. And I think that's really what made a big shift and understanding that my anxiety might actually be that side effect of
Hmm.
just not understanding how my brain works. Right.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's
Mm.
all bringing in the woman girl piece because it is severely
Mm.
underdiagnosed. And we've talked about that severely underdiagnosed in the female population versus male. And it totally makes sense because also, like, in my 30s, I was always fatigued and they always blamed it on my iron, saying, hey, you're fatigued, you're menstruating, it's your iron. And every single time my iron came back perfectly healthy. And I'm like, it's not that. But they have this mindset, oh, you're a woman, either you don't have ADHD because you're not a boy, or, it's just
Mm.
that assumption that unconsciously, I think a lot of people tend to start to do. So it is starting to
Yeah.
be diagnosed more and more. And they're saying and I want to say that they're like, it's dramatically increasing the number of women and girls who are diagnosed. And they're like, this is a syndrome. I'm like, or it's not an epidemic, but something like that. But I'm like, no, we just weren't
Yeah.
diagnosed before. And now
Yeah.
we are. So now this is what
Yeah.
it's normal, not this massive increase.
Yeah, and I and
Yeah.
I think that's where I had to work really hard to get my ADHD diagnosis. I feel like it was like I should have a certification just for doing that
Hmm.
because I had a history of mental
Hmm.
health struggles. It was so hard to get them to see this because of all of the stuff that is out there in terms of social media, and everybody else apparently is being diagnosed with ADHD, and our attention spans are, where they're at because of social media. And I think all of that just really highlights like we don't really understand what ADHD is. A, and also B, not A. I think it's got completely the wrong term associated with it because we have so much attention, but we
Hmm.
just don't know where to put it. We
Hmm.
can't prioritize where to put it. So it's not about lack of attention. So there's so many pieces to this. And I think that's where those subtle nuances have left women and girls out
Hmm.
all this time. And then has led to here, you're obviously depressed. Here's an antidepressant. Here, you're whatever it is, anxiety medication. It is, and it literally, especially if you have ADHD, can have detrimental effects that actually make you feel worse instead of better.
Hmm.
In terms of the science, that can be a thing. It's not overwhelming in terms of studies around this, but there's something there. So I
Hmm.
think, especially around serotonin and obviously dopamine, right? But also GABA, but all of these levels are really important to understand. And I think because we're all advocating for ourselves, it's almost like to our detriment because they're like, yeah, you're just another woman asking me to diagnose you with ADHD. And I
Hmm.
think that's my biggest barrier. But I knew I could see it in my child. I could see what was going on there. And I was like, oh my God, this is, this is me. It just looked differently. Right.
Hmm.
So anyways, I think that was the catalyst for me to be like, wow, I can't. I can't keep doing what I've been doing, what I thought I should be doing, what everybody else was so proud of me for doing. And like, whatever it was in my career and
Mm-hmm.
all of those I couldn't do it anymore. Like I just totally burnt out and was fried because I didn't know or understand how my brain actually worked and what I needed in order to thrive. That's a
Mm-hmm.
huge difference, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, like once you kind of figure out what's going on, it's almost like, oh, this all makes sense. Now what do like I can at least do something about because I know it's this and not I know it's A B versus A. So now I can shift things up and it's okay that like you brought up what you were doing what everyone else was proud of you for doing, but is this what you really should be doing because you were burning out? And it is, we start to feel like society, we have to follow this certain pattern and we follow it because that's what we're supposed to be doing, but it just doesn't feel right. And then we start thinking, what's wrong with us? Like, what do we do? And once we realize what's going on, you're like, oh, I can shift my life. I can still be successful in my own way, my own definition by it. But I can't do it like you guys been telling me to do it, you know?
That
Yeah.
is, and I think for women, that is enormous because
Mm-hmm.
we're so used to doing that, right? We're so used to the shoulds and we're so
Mm-hmm.
used to, but I've done this all this time. Why can't I do it now? That's
Mm-hmm.
another big piece. What's going on there? And then it's just that those expectations, I should be able to handle everything. I should be, why is this? And not taking that and not being afforded in that space to take a
Mm-hmm.
minute and take a step back. Wait, what's actually going on here? What is
Yeah.
it that I'm struggling with? What is hard? And what does that show me about what I actually need?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So what was well, we kind of know the catalyst, but I'm like, what's kind of the
Yeah.
catalyst that made you jump from teaching to get into starting this business of nutrition coaching, functional
Yeah.
nutrition coaching?
It was 1000% burnout for
Mm-hmm.
sure from teaching. And I think, to be honest with you, there was burnout before I had children, but I think children were a big catalyst because there's so much demand on our executive function load, right? Prefrontal
Mm-hmm.
cortex, all of that stuff. It just, it, I love how everybody's like, congratulations, you're having a child. And then all of a sudden, nobody told me that this would be exactly what it was like, and having to manage all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
I think especially the load for women is different. Even with, progressive culture and what we're trying to do in terms of balance between partners, I think it's always harder for women, no matter what, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that was the tipping point for me. I would because my children were so ingrained in like my soul, right? Like, and how I move through the world. So I can't, that's a hard non-negotiable. So I think I struggled with that a lot, trying to balance what I was doing with teaching, but also because, especially with ADHD, we are very sensitive to others' needs and very sensitive, emotionally sensitive to what's going on around us, or maybe stimulation or sensory awareness. And I felt like that became really loud and really big and really heavy. And I don't think I realized that. Like I see it now,
Mm-hmm.
stepping out of it, but I think it became so big. I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was just like I can't. And I remember sitting on the floor in my kitchen and I opened the pantry trying to figure out like what do I feed my kids. And I've always loved health and wellness. I've always been an active person. I've always been mindful of these things. Like what do I give my kids? But this is where my passion is. This is where my passion is. Like I had a moment and then I was like, well, that's just it. Like maybe I just need to, what if I switched things up? Imagine, didn't follow conventions. And then that's what I did. So I took I have a certification in holistic nutrition and then furthered it with functional nutrition, which is just a little bit further than that. And then
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much more to this too. And I went into the ADHD coaching realm as well throughout this experience, but it was transformative. And that's kind of how I ended up there because I was like, this is the last straw. Like there's no, I can't be here for my kids. I can't be here for my partner. I can't be a human if I don't make something change in this world, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And a little side piece, and I find this really interesting. Like you mentioned, like we are getting progressive. Men are doing more and more, and we have to acknowledge that because it is some of them are really trying to make it a little equal for us, and we still have a ways to go. But one time, I don't know if you've heard of Winco. I love Winco. Um,
Mhm.
and my mom and I were at one morning, and whenever there's a guy there, there's usually the wife, right? So it's otherwise it's just the wife or the woman shopping, right? We get in line and we're like the fourth in line, and there's in front of us are all men. And usually if there's men without women, it's just like a couple of things. No, they had a lot of things, and the guy right in front of us had a full cartload, and it was just him. And I turned to my mom, I was like, wow, you don't see that often. And he turned, and I was like, they're all men. And he turns, he goes, yeah, I do a lot of the cooking too. He's like, and I'm like,
Yes. I love
progression,
that.
progressive. Like, I'm like, there's change going on. And this is really awesome because even though, men tend to do more at home, you don't really see them at the grocery store that much. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is awesome. All right, sorry, that was a nice little side tangent I had to throw in there. Um,
I love it. I love it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's really important to acknowledge too. And like, this week is a bit of a busy week for me. And I was just like, I can't even think about dinner for like often we do like I do dinner for my husband and I, and then I also do dinner for our kids, just depending on whatever might be going on and ease and speed, because we're always running out the door to whatever sport and whatever it
Yeah.
is. And I was just like, I just need you. Can you just handle that? And then but I still managed to solve it on the walk home from dropping off our kids at school. Like I still felt the need to like, I'll just sort it out. I'll just tell you what to do. And I already know it's there and it's fine. Like, we can't, it's so ingrained
Hmm.
in our, you know what I mean? So I think that's, but he is so wonderfully supportive and literally would fall all over himself, but they just need more instructions than, because we're
Until
used
they
to
get used to it, because we're
yeah.
used to
And
doing everything and they're used to us doing things, and we
yeah,
have to let things go and we have to stop. I don't know if dictating is the right word, but we are
delegate,
definitely better at
delegate.
delegating. We are very good at multitasking, and we've done it for so long. We've gotten so used, but we have to let some of that go. And I mean, I even talk about that in my burnout episode too. It's like we've got to start delegating out more and not because we are putting it more stuff on our plate. We need to take those things back off.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, all right. Well,
I think, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, tell me what is exactly is a functional nutrition coach?
Okay. So I get this question a lot, definitely. So it is a practitioner who looks
Mm-hmm.
at nutrition. Um, I wouldn't want to say nutrition first. I would say I look at the body first as a connected system. So I look at you come to me and we break down all the systems that might be going awry. So we might
Mm-hmm.
have like um in terms of symptoms. So you might be noticing certain things, like, and especially for women, especially around perimenopause and menopause, like we're noticing brain fog, we're noticing, night sweats, or we're noticing like waking in the night. There's so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think um, what I do is try to connect all of those. So it's not about like what symptom are you having and slapping on a solution for that one symptom. I'm always thinking like what is contributing to this pattern? Like I'm looking for patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and all of our body systems are connected. So our hormones, our gut health, like our mental health, our cardiovascular health, like there's so many body systems. And I think that's what I think I end up often doing to support a lot of the people I work with is even how do I even talk to my medical professional about this? Because we look at it from the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're thinking about it in terms of like, we're not looking for one root cause, because I think that's often what the misconception is around understanding what's going on. Like, oh, I'm bloated. So what's the one cause of that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's never any one thing to blame. Like I
Yeah.
guarantee you, I
It's
think
just
that
easier to focus on that one thing. So
it's
yeah,
easier.
definitely.
Yes. And then if we go and see our doctor, then we're like, okay, I'm bloated or I have, acid reflux or whatever. And then they give you this one thing. But in
Mm-hmm.
actuality, that could come from hormone dysregulation. That could come from, gut imbalance, gut health imbalance, cortisol. Oh my gosh, just cortisol dysregulation. Like maybe your cortisol schedule is imbalanced. Like maybe you're low in the morning and high at night. And then how do we fix that? Maybe you have food sensitivities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it might be. I think it's really about this cascade and really understanding all of that. So that's kind of where I live.
Mm-hmm.
I think, a big part of this is also this idea of what we call it is biochemical individuality, which just means that like every body is different. So even though, say, for example, for me, I specialize in, ADHD and neurodivergence, that doesn't mean I'm going to give you a protocol just for that. It
Mm-hmm.
is about like who you are. I've never once met anyone who has ADHD in the same way I have it, or my son has it, or any other client that I've ever had. It's totally different. So it's really about appreciation for that and understanding about
Mm-hmm.
that, because a lot of that has to do with trauma. A lot of that has to do with mental health over time. Over
Mm-hmm.
time, stress load over time is the most underrated, I think, like factor that we are not considering in terms of like allopathic health. We need to be thinking about that over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also, in terms of just the functional nutrition definition, I think so. I do testing specifically. So things like, gut health. So poop testing, nobody's favorite, but we do it
Mm-hmm.
if we feel like we need to. And that's really only because, and often it's often down the line if we feel like, there might be a challenge, like we're still not resolving something, we might need to do some testing. Similarly with hormones like cortisol and estrogen, lots of different things. Also food sensitivities, because those create, if you have a sensitivity to something, but you don't really know, it doesn't mean you have an allergy, which is
Mm-hmm.
something different,
Mm-hmm.
but you might be sensitive. And then that sensitivity actually creates that inflammation response in your body. So understanding that better can be really helpful. And then I also do nutrigenomic testing, which is really like genetic testing. So I know, because I've done this on myself, that I do not absorb vitamin B12 through my digestive tract. So I take it sublingually, which is under my tongue, once a day. It actually gets absorbed directly into my bloodstream. But if I took it like in a capsule, or if I eat it, right, which is through lots of sort of meat sources, is the way that we get B12 in, which is so critical for energy also.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And it's the number one thing. Honestly, I give, sometimes I just, we talk about, I don't know, I have, we go through the process and I give the vitamin B12 and we realize like maybe offer them a sublingual B12, and then they never talk to me again, which isn't a good business model. But at the same time, like that's might have what was missing, right? But I know that. So I think
Interesting.
that's where to work. Yeah.
Okay, I got several points off of everything you just said, but just what you said, not good business model. I mean, that is actually one of my missions is to get my clients in a position that they no longer need me. And everyone's like, no, you want to
Mm,
keep them coming back? I'm like, no, because my years as being a therapist, I don't want anyone dependent on me. My goal is to make these women like self-assured, knowledgeable
yes.
of what they need and how they can attach, do what they need to do to move on for themselves. So they're, and they can come back whenever they need just to touch base. But I don't want them, I'm like, I want to set them up to be successful on their own and that they don't have to
Yes.
have me. Like, I'm like, it's so anti-business model right there.
I know. My husband is like a marketing specialist. He doesn't do that anymore, but he is. But and he always is like, well, that's not helpful. I'm like, but what? But that's what I do, right? From this perspective, like, no, no. To me, that's a win.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway,
I
I
get a
love that.
high off of that because I'm like, I did
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I helped with that. Like,
I know. You
yes,
figured out something. And
yeah.
it's never any one thing, but it's something, right? It contributes, especially any B vitamin is like part of our energy
Hmm.
metabolism. So, and especially if you have ADHD or if you're stressed, like you don't have to have ADHD. Who doesn't have stress? Okay. Stress depletes our B vitamins, it depletes our magnesium, depletes zinc, depletes so many different things. So, like if we can give it to your body in a form that it can actually use,
Mm-hmm.
that can make a lot of difference, even just one piece. And then we work on other pieces
Yeah.
in terms of food or whatever it might be.
And
Right.
it's interesting. Vitamin D is such an issue for mental health. And it's like
Yes.
when I did integrated behavioral health years ago, working with doctors and the patients in a medical setting, they even in Arizona, we were finding vitamin D deficiencies because people wearing
Yes.
makeup, sunblock, they're staying inside during the
Yeah.
summer because summer we stay inside. And
Mhm.
they were finding all this connection, but people just think, oh, I'm in a sunny state, I have plenty of vitamin D. I'm like, no. Plus, the darker your skin is, the harder it is to absorb vitamin D.
Yes. And to make it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where
Mm-hmm.
we actually can produce it. And but we also have to remember that we actually need all the cofactors in order to
Process.
convert it into
Mm-hmm.
a usable form. So when we can take it in all we want, but if we don't have the cofactors, which could be, I mean, there's so many different things where this can come from, especially with vitamin D. We don't have those other pieces, then where you can be taking it all you want, but you're not actually even using it. Like,
Yeah.
and
You're
that goes
getting
with
rid of it.
any,
Yeah.
yeah, any
Mm-hmm.
vitamin or mineral. So I think, but that's a big piece. And the vitamin D piece, my gosh, vitamin D is like, I think that's like my number one. Exercise is my number one recommendation. Number two, vitamin D. Number three, magnesium. And then we get into the omegas and the B vitamins. But
Mm-hmm.
like, but those are like the big ones that I often see with definitely with neurodivergence, but also just with everyone because we're stressed and we don't
Mm-hmm.
get enough sunshine and we're sitting in rooms or standing inside the majority of our life when we were not meant to be. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I like how you were bringing up that prolonged stress because the way I interpret that too is how what I'm experiencing. And this is the second time I've been in this working situation. And it's the second time I'm having a physical reaction to it. And I put so much on my plate and I feel like I can handle everything and I don't feel stress, but my body senses it before my brain does. And it's like, you need to slow down. And, and I'm like, I have to start paying attention to because like and I see this with women all the time. We keep putting things on a plate because either we feel like we should be doing it or like we know we can do it, so we're just going to do it. Um, and then my body's like, no, no, just no. Like, and then I have to listen to it and I have to start backing off before I start having more issues. And it's just that mental stress that doesn't feel like stress, but it is on the body. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's where we underestimate this. And I think from your perspective too, I think that's really important. Because, and I think this is amazing in terms of our conversation today, because
Mm-hmm.
I work a lot on the physiology, the understanding, the biology, right? Like cellular, like what actually is happening at a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's where I am trying to pull in more of this understanding of like just where we are in terms of like, yes, we can give our body what we think it needs, but are you even absorbing it? Are you even able to take it in a way that makes sense for you? Um, and and we always know what we should be doing,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the nervous system piece, and that's a really big piece too, that I know you obviously focus on a ton, but that is enormous. That's become enormous for me, even as a functional nutritionist, because
Mm-hmm.
your nervous system is literally telling your body what to do with everything. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's dysregulated, if there's emotional dysregulation, if there's chronic stress, because who doesn't have chronic stress?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, right? Like so that automatically means that there's going to be other physiological, like physical things that are not working. So you
Mm-hmm.
can be eating the cleanest. I love when people tell me, oh, I eat clean. That's my favorite. Like, no, like, really? Okay, fine. Let's look at your digestion. Are you even digesting the protein that you're eating? Because you're doing whatever the protein was told you to do on social media. Let's just look at even if you're digesting that first, because probably you're not. Let's
Mm-hmm.
be honest, especially if you have a certain stress level. uh like that's so huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like, I swear, like one part of the work that I do, especially with my ADHD clients. Like we're looking at all of that, but then we're looking at the how do I do this, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
And taking
Mhm.
it back earlier, just how you were describing like functional nutrition, I love that whole looking at all the symptoms, how they're all impacting each other. Because I'm the same way with like personal training and like the behavioral coaching I do. Because I worked with this amazing woman for like about a year and a half. I loved it. It just didn't fit into my schedule, but I loved working with her. But I would be doing just personal training with my clients and nutrition coaching, like, and that's all I was doing. And I was finding, I was like, wait a second, there's another piece here. And I wasn't in the position where I can look at the behavioral side of things that much and work. But I'm like, yeah, you can do this all you want, but you're going to struggle to lose weight until you fix like A, B, and C, or you look over here on the behavior side, what's going on, what's with the stress, look at all these other symptoms, like systems, not symptoms, systems. And you have to incorporate that with the healthy eating because you're not matching your eating as well to everything that's going on over here. So looking at the behavioral piece, and that's why I love to like with Body and Mind Strong, that's what it is. It's that mind and body connection, looking at both
Mhm.
pieces and not just one. So many people separate the mind and body when day to day.
It's not
Yeah.
separate at all. Like it
Mm-hmm.
is 1000% not separate. Like in utero, before we become who we are, our gut and our brain is actually like one piece and in utero.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow, that piece gets extended and it's connected, stays connected by the vagus nerve. But we like the gut and the brain literally develop together in utero. Like to
Mm-hmm.
me, that is like, I think that's one of the most profound understandings that have helped me understand how important it is to make sure it's not even just what we're eating. Like, am I digesting it? And what's in the way of me digesting what I am eating? Because we all know what we should be eating. But
Mm-hmm.
like, if we're not even at the point where we can, like, cortisol levels or in chronic stress that shuts down digestion. So there's no way we're going to digest. We're not going to make enough stomach acid to actually like break down the protein that we're even feeding ourselves. So we can do all the things, but none of it actually works if we're in this chronic stress mode. And there's so much more. And I think this is where your work is so important too,
Mm-hmm.
because you have that other balance. Like I do what I can. And I definitely, this is part of what I work on, trying to make things easier for everyone I work with. But it's that stress response piece that I feel like we are living in, especially in North America, that is the problem. Like this is the source. We're going to talk about a root cause,
Mm-hmm.
chronic stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the way you also described it earlier is like, I also say, like, especially when it comes to fitness in this
Mm-hmm.
area, and I even say it when it comes to like behavioral health, is the answer normally is it depends. Like, how do you solve this one? Well, it depends. Like you were talking about the systems and what's impacting what. And like, there is not a single answer that's a catch-all. Like when you see on this drives me nuts on social media. This is the only way to lose weight, or this is the only way you can get a flat stomach. I'm like, first of all, liposuction gives you a flat stomach. Second, I'm like, it should always be, it depends because it depends on who you are, how your body responds. So you were talking about that earlier, how your body responds to certain foods, what stress do you have going on, what's going on in your life physically. Not everyone can do the same thing, and our bodies are all different. So what works for me may not work for you and vice versa. And so I say that answer should always be it depends because you have to look at so many other factors like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It depends. I think I'm going to use that more now. It depends, but that is it, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's that bio individuality. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
call it in terms of like where I live. Everyone is different. It doesn't matter if they have, even if somebody comes to me with like, cardiovascular disease, I really want to change whatever it might be. It's not even ADHD related. I'm not going to put them in the same category. It's always going to be how do we understand them better? And I think, oh, gosh, that's what you do on a regular basis. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
we all do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
As practitioners, but I think that's a big misconception for this, that I should be doing something because I have this ailment, because we've always put all of these things in a specific basket or in a specific, like, I don't know what to call it. And then it's all separate. But when
Mm-hmm.
in actuality, and that's what I do, is I look at all the pieces and how they actually interact with each other and how they show me, wait, maybe that's what I do, is take that step back. And I'm like, okay, but there's all these things going on. Which one is going to be the one that we need to start with? And to be honest with you, the number one I see all the time is just digestion. Like, you're not even digesting your food properly, which means you're not breaking down your food properly. We're not making enough stomach acid, especially as we age. How do we deal with that? And then that is going to be the catalyst. Once that happens, it sets off a cascade throughout your entire body,
Mm-hmm.
which changes so many things, changes your gut, where everybody's talking about gut health, but like, can't talk about gut health until you talk about, like, is your stomach even breaking down the food?
Mm-hmm.
No, we need to talk about that first. I feel like that needs to be our next focus, because that's really important. And if we have undigested food going into our gut, we just breed the wrong bacteria 24/7. And then that has a huge impact on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. Okay. However, I think the other piece, like, I think we've talked a lot about the knowledge around all of this, and we know it. A lot of us know it, but I think that's where also where we break down, because we know too much. I don't know. You tell me, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we do kind of know. Well, I think, are you talking like people in general, we just know, we just don't want to listen to ourselves? Or sometimes I feel like we know too much, so then we start over analyzing it. Like my
Oh,
example I use
both.
for,
Oh,
yeah. So
yeah.
with the over analyzing, I use this with clients is like I send them like a strengths and quality worksheets. And I'm like, do not overthink it, because every single person, and like I've done it myself when I've looked at it, looks at the questions and they start overthinking, like, what are my three strongest traits, right? You start analyzing each trait, and is it really that strong compared to, well, my friend does this. And so we start over analyzing, even though we know it's there. And you and I talked about this earlier. We are really good at helping other people because it's clearer for us to see their situation. But when we're in the middle of it, it does become foggy. And I even talk to clients about this because I'm like, okay, how, if a friend was going through this, what would you tell your friend? Because
Mm.
we are able to see it better when it's outside of ourselves.
Oh, I
Because
love that. Do you
so,
ask that of your clients on a regular basis? Like, if a
mhm,
friend, I love
yeah,
that.
because
I'm totally used to that.
I mean, just that was it yesterday. I had a client was saying what that client say? Something about it's harder for us to see our own things. I'm like, yeah, everyone's like that. I'm like that. Like I have a friend on the other my partner on the other podcast. She calls me out all the time, and we talk about that on our podcast because I start talking, and then she gives me these looks or she eyeballs me. So I'm like, oh, wait a second. So I have to check myself, and so that's where having those close people around you is really good because we don't always see it ourselves right off the bat, even though we know more, we know better, we know what we should do. And that is actually that my philosophy with my clients that I take, they pretty much know the answer. I'm there to help them dig it out. It's there.
Mhm.
I'm just putting the mirror
Mhm.
up so they can see it. I may give them little tips here, coping skills, different ways to look at things, but it ultimately comes from them. So,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's a huge piece. And that's what hits home for me too right now, is like, that's what I do. So
mhm,
exactly. So I think, and as I said earlier, I don't think I've met a single human that has the same protocol. There's not one.
mhm,
And I hate using that word. I'm being more clinical because I don't really actually use that word in my practice ever. It's more about understanding, I think, the big picture of like, where might there be nutrient insufficiencies? Like maybe we're
mhm,
depleted. And often, especially in the neurodivergent sphere, because of the stress response our body has lived in for so long, like probably the entirety, especially if you're a woman who is in perimenopause right now, you are with me. We have been depleted forever of B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, iron. There's so many other things. And we look at those because we burn through them in order to keep our energy metabolism in a place where we can just function. So
mhm,
we've been just in this place of just like, I just have to function, like survival mode. And so that also elevates and dysregulates our hormones for sure, like in cortisol balance. Oof. And then that has a big impact. Estrogen is our major, oh my gosh, regulating hormone. And
woo,
especially as we age, I know it just becomes this other thing. So if you have all of this other stress, estrogen's already maybe inconsistent if you're later in life, like I am in my, late 40s. And the progesterone balance also is a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but also just cortisol. And like maybe that cortisol, like you might have low cortisol in the morning, which is the opposite of what we want. We want higher cortisol in the morning and lower cortisol in the evening. So this hormone, like there's so many factors behind all of this. I think that we don't even realize, but I think the catalyst, this is where I'm going with this. The catalyst is is emotional regulation, is what's happening in our day. How are we taking care of ourselves? What is our nervous system like? All of those hormonal pieces that get out of whack have to do with our stress response,
Mm-hmm.
about how we take care of ourselves, about and how we understand what we actually need in order to do those things. And I think that's where the work that I try to do with my own clients as well is help them understand what you actually need here to make this easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's look at what's hard. Like, why is it hard? After a full day, you've been rushed off your feet, you got your kids to wherever, you had to go to work, and then you raced home and you had to pick up everybody, and then you got to go to some sort of activity in the evening for a kid. You couldn't plan before. What was hard about that?
Mm-hmm.
And then, or you didn't even think about it, because that's often, gosh, that's me also. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I don't have any availability of whatever could be an option in the fridge. What's hard? What happened here? What was the breakdown that we are missing? Because there's a point where we call it, yeah, there's a point where we can actually do it. Point of performance. Like, how do we even get into something like that? Why are we breaking down? Is it because of the day, the stress, the nervous system dysregulation, the demands of the family? How do we pre-prepare for that without, I don't know, spending 6 hours on a Sunday meal planning? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a jam. I can't. Who can do that? Please show me the person who can do that. That's not a thing. So I think it's more about understanding. And I think that's where our work often intersects in that way, is that it's like the deeper understanding of the why. Why is this hard? What's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I love it. All right. Okay, so big pause. Okay, I'm processing.
Okay.
So when you
Sorry.
reached out, so just to let you all know, Amy is the one that reached out to me. So like she found me, which was totally awesome because I was like, how did you even find me? I'm still kind of a small person, but which was really awesome because for those who don't know, Amy's clear up in like Toronto, Canada. Going to have some amazing weather this week, which I'm totally jealous of because I'm in southern Arizona in the desert, which is going to suck this week. Our summer is officially here because we're hitting triple digits already,
Oh
like
my gosh.
consistently.
But do you know we would kill for that? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Consistency. We would just want consistency, which is another word we need to talk about. Oh my gosh.
I always like to, for those people who are up, like, I always like to describe, like, everyone's like jealous of our weather. Yes, we have amazing winter weather. But I like to describe it this way. Like, so people up north, I'm like, when you're at the end of your winter, your summer's coming, and all of a sudden you have another snowfall. What's that like? For us, when it hits triple digits, that's what it's like for us because we're like, not yet. We just
Oh,
had this crazy like summer. We
okay.
need the coolness. And so I always tell people, yeah, flip that around. So our summers are like your guys' winter, where we're like, no, we don't want this because,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I never thought of it that way. I really appreciate that. That actually makes me feel better about dealing with the
yeah,
winter.
we hit triple
And
digits where it was like beginning of March,
yeah.
which was we're like, I'm like, we still have a cooling streak, not yet. And we did have a nice until it's now officially here. But anyways, all right. So when you reached out, what actually caught my attention, and I was like, ooh, I've got to talk to her about this, is the ADHD part of it. And
Mm,
like I work with clients and I'm not very familiar with nutrition and ADHD, though over the years I've been seeing that become more and more of a thing. So like
mm.
talk to us a little bit about that. Like, is there like certain foods that are better than others? How do you kind of deal with the nutrition around like ADHD?
ADHD specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, gosh, there's so much. So, um, so I think like, especially my one-to-one work is really about, again, I'm going to say it again. We have to understand what that person's life looks like before we can do any sort of work in that.
Mm-hmm.
That work usually, again, as a coach, it comes from them. Like it comes from me recognizing, okay, I can clearly see a barrier here. I don't necessarily say it out loud, but we talk through it. And I support that person in coming up with strategies or what, tools that they might be able to actually use within their own life. And that is
Mm-hmm.
really important because I think that's what I've learned as a practitioner, especially in the ADHD sphere. There are so many, like, everybody has a tool and a hack and like I don't know, like a strategy. Like, this is your fix. This is like, your life is going to be solved if you do this. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, I've tried all of it and none of it works because it's not specific to who I am and how I work, and how my life is and what, I have these kids and this is our schedule. Like, it doesn't work for everyone. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where I really try to break down some of those misconceptions. And it's hard. And it's hard for my clients who come to me, but it's also hard for me too, because it's like, sometimes I'm like, but I could see how this fix works, but I actually don't know if that fix would work because I don't know if that person would actually be able to stand up to me and say, but that doesn't work for me because apparently I'm an expert. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's this weird, anyways, that's another whole thing, maybe a whole other podcast, but like, it is like, there's a piece there where I'm very aware of that. So, and I'm very cautious around it. But, and then the other piece of it too, is that like everyone wants a quick fix, right? Because we're used to quick fixes. We're used to everything
Definitely.
short video. We're used to
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And everybody thinks like, oh, just go talk to her and then she'll solve all my problems in one session, which is like, things happen over time. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's another big piece of this too. Um, but I think it's really just looking at how ADHD for my clients really shows up in their daily life. Like, where are those challenges?
Mm-hmm.
What's hard? Where's the friction? I always call it, like, what do you feel like, oh, this is hard?
Yeah.
And starting to learn how to recognize what's hard, especially around food. And this is obviously where I live too, because food is to me, is emotional regulation. And it's not necessarily for everyone, but I know for sure from my experience with my own son, and I had to really fight for him to be able to eat throughout the day. Like, I'd make him a snack box, like a little bento box every day of like just snacks. And he just eats all day. Like, could be cucumbers, could be whatever. Like, and he just snacks on it all day. It's sensory regulation because he's crunching, but also he is keeping his blood glucose levels at a level that are like consistent throughout the
Mm-hmm.
day. Instead of, we have breakfast, which usually he does not want to eat because he doesn't like to eat in the morning, which is, I don't know, we all understand this. There's a lot of us who just can't. Others of us can, but he can't. So he doesn't have a great breakfast, but I give him this box. He can open it up. Really had to work hard on advocating in terms of the school. We did it though. And that's how he lives. He eats all day from this box, all day.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes home. Yes, he's hungry, but he's not a mess. Like, he doesn't show up and then like drops like he used to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think that's a really big piece of this, is really understanding, regulating and understanding. And I think this is where a lot of the women that I work with come in, especially in perimenopause. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm gaining all this weight. My hormones are all over the place. I feel like this, like everything, just brain fog, emotional, night sweats, all the things. And they're like, I just need to restrict food. They're like, I just need to stop eating so much. And that literally is the opposite of what we need to be doing at this age. Like, quite literally, I can't. And I think that's just, some of the misconception in terms of what we see in social media. But
Yeah. I
um,
mean, I actually even had clients that I increased their calories and they started losing weight.
oh,
Like,
yes,
it's
right?
right. I'm like, you guys, it seems it just blows your mind, but
Yeah.
ladies, there's times and it's what we're
Oh,
eating too. Like, and we have to increase those calories. Like, yeah.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a big piece, I think, of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you throw ADHD on top of that, and they can't like, or we have often uh barriers in terms of like just understanding time is a big
Mm-hmm.
one. Like understanding, like, no problem. I'll just be able to figure out dinner. I'll just do that at like whatever time, and I'll do it when I get home, and I'll be able to do that. So we have that uh situation where we think, I call it time optimism. It's my favorite. We're like, yeah, no problem. I'll just figure it out after I've had this insanely busy day and I'm totally depleted and my capacity is low emotionally, physically, physiologically. Also, that's the other piece that I'm constantly looking at. And then we're just gonna like, and then everybody's like, what's for dinner? And you're like, oh my God, I can't even figure this out right now because I can't even think. And that is what I support like people with, is like, how do we make sure that you have something ready to go on those days where you're like, oh my gosh, and I didn't even think, but there's something in the freezer, there's something in the fridge. I can just pull these three things together and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we're talking about. And there's systems to do that that are friendly with our the way our brains work, that we don't have to do. Like, all I see is like, everybody, I'm meal prepping today. I'm like, what? No, that's not a thing. No, it's not what we do. Like, no. So I think that's where I live. That's where like my brain lives, is how do we make this easier for you? What does this look like in your life and your schedule, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the people who are meal prepping the most are the single ones without kids. Um,
Yes, 1000%. I am with you. No kids and no partner also, because that also influences things.
mm-hmm.
I,
It
yeah.
is. But I love the term time optimism. And it's true because I have self-diagnosed myself with just ADD and everyone's like, well, it's social media. I'm like, well, this started long before the internet came around.
Mhm.
And looking back into my history of where I am your typical squirrel, like that is me to the T. But I also feel like, oh, I can put all this on I can do that. And that's what's causing some of the health issues now because the stress, I'm putting so much on my plate. Because when I started, I'm like, oh, I've got time. I can do this. Oh, I can do this over here. I can put all this together just nice and neatly. And my body's like, nope.
No,
Like,
when you get
uh,
to actually to that point where you
mm-hmm,
actually have to do the thing, it's not there
mm-hmm,
anymore, right? We thought about it. We were like, that's where the time optimism comes in. Like that. And it's not even time optimism. It's just like general optimism that,
mm-hmm,
yeah, no problem. I'll be able to do that. Oh my gosh. I'm thinking about it right now because I'm like, I have all these zucchinis in my drawer and I'm going to make this wonderful thing. I know that by the time I get there today, that's not going to happen. I'm going to do my best, but like maybe it might happen tomorrow. Like, I need to do that at a certain time of day. And that's what we try to figure out, right? Like, it has to be with like, often, to be honest with you, prep happens for me
mm-hmm,
for like dinner when I have to make breakfast for my kids in the morning. That's something I have to do. Or I have to make a lunch for them and send it to school with them. I'm already out. My cutting board's out. I'm cutting cucumber. I'm cutting whatever. Why wouldn't I just cut a little bit more? And it doesn't mean you're going to spend an extra like hour. It just means like literally, and I've calculated this, like honestly, it takes me an extra 5 minutes to chop the stuff that I would need for dinner on
mm-hmm.
that day. I'm already here. Let's do it when we're already here, when we're already able to access it. And then we also work on the, how do I even do the thing? Like for me as a mom, I think it's hard. I don't know. Like, I think it's like, just sometimes you just have to do the thing. Like you don't have a choice, like, because otherwise your child doesn't get fed. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
a non-negotiable. And you literally do the try harder thing, which I hate. And you just have to do it no matter what capacity you're in. I recognize that. But at the same time, if we're already there, let's take advantage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I like that already there piece too, because when I work with like meal
Mm.
prepping, there is people when they view meal prepping, it's like an all or nothing thing. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like I used to just get my big things of lettuce back when I had a bigger fridge and I would divide them in the tubs I would take for lunch for salad. And that was it. Or I may cut a few things in there, but I wouldn't cut stuff until the morning of. So it was like half prepped. And then I could decide the morning of what I wanted on it. So if
What
my
your
taste,
capacity was.
yeah,
I
if my taste
love
changed,
that.
what kind of meat, proteins, what kind of salad dressing, that would all change the day of. But it took one or two less steps out of my morning that I had to process because I'm
And
not a
then
morning person. Yeah.
do you feel like the actual prep for that lunch prep was easier because there was already a step in?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I get at
Yeah.
least part of it, I'm not in so much in the morning because, decision fatigue is a huge thing. And starting off the morning with so many decisions, like
Mm.
actually mornings when you should make the most decisions, but or your big decisions.
Oh,
But
I love that. Yeah.
taking that step out, it helped the morning go a little bit smoother for me. And I didn't have to think as much starting my day before I had to jump out of the door, like to leave.
Yeah. And it gave you like I always talk about it as like the first smallest step. Like what can
Hmm.
we do is what's the easiest step in? I know, gosh, I grew up with this mentality of like this weird thing about like eating the elephant. Like if you got to eat an elephant, how are you gonna do it? Great. We break it up into small steps. But it was always about like what's the hardest part of this first? And I
Hmm.
think that is such a misconception. Um, I think the way in, especially with neurodivergence, because we need momentum. We
Hmm.
need, like, if so, we have to do something that's really hard, we're never going to start it. What we need is the easiest way in. And I love that. What that example is like if you just put, lettuce in container, it doesn't have to be a full lunch. It just has to be something, the first step already done. It gives you a way in, first smallest step in. And then, okay, so what do I feel like today? Also, that's a big thing. Like,
Hmm.
because we can decide ahead of time all we want. This is why I hate meal prep, like, Sunday meal prep. Like, I don't know what I'm going to feel like on Wednesday afternoon. Like,
Hmm.
don't talk to me about that right now. That just makes me angry. Um, but I think it's more about like giving us opportunities for flexibility,
Hmm.
giving us an understanding of the systems that maybe we don't know, right? Especially as women, like we don't know. I watched my mother, work her freaking arse off for lack of a better word, in the kitchen 24/7, cooking, cleaning, doing all the things. All of those things have executive function load.
Hmm.
And then if you're a working mother, you're an entrepreneur, like forget it. Like it is
Hmm.
just like there's very little access into how do I make this easy. So I think that's where, my gosh, I live 24/7 is like, how do I make this easier for me, my kids? How do I make everyone happy? How do I make the first step easier so that I can get into it? Once we get into it, we have momentum.
Hmm.
My brain is like, yep, okay, next thing, next thing. This is what I feel like today. And then I might make a few other, maybe, I don't know, containers of like the same thing because I'm on it and I feel like, ooh, and then this gives me like productivity and I feel like, yes, dopamine, wonderful. It doesn't mean I'm going to feel like it on Thursday if I made it on Monday, but whatever, it's done. And if we are at such low capacity on Thursday because we're exhausted, we have an option.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And
And
that I think is the biggest piece around this.
and I love that. And it is true. Like think about or just planning for the end of your whatever day your end of your week is, because it is come Friday, I am like almost half checked out because I am so worn down. So I want to make the less decisions on a Friday. So prepping, even if you don't eat the foods like Monday or Tuesday, at least like you said, you have that towards the end of the week. You don't even have to think it's in the fridge or it's in the freezer. It's easy to go. Eh,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think that's the idea behind it is, but also with this perspective, like, but I might not feel like this, but also, and I don't know how this would sit, but like, I feel like sometimes I'm like, I have to, and I say this regularly, it's like sometimes we have to take our medicine.
hmm.
Sometimes we have to eat the food that we don't necessarily feel like, which isn't great. At a time we don't like, especially if you're on ADHD meds and we may not have an appetite. Sometimes we just got to do it because we know that that's going to keep our blood glucose regulation the way that we want. It's going to help us sleep better at night. It's going to help us stay hydrated. Like there's a level of like, it's not pushing through. It's more like a level of understanding of the
Hmm.
bigger picture that is the most important piece. Like I never push like you have to do this. It's more about like what can we access? It's going to support you but I think it's like, but there is a level of a tipping point where it's like, listen, if we, there has to be a tipping point of the catalyst to get
Mm-hmm.
you over into the next realm. And that's like the struggle, right? It's like climbing up a mountain. You don't grow, you don't change unless you do something hard or out of character. Like that's how we grow. And that's a big thing for me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
love growth. I believe in growth. I think that's why I'm standing in front of you right now. But I
Yeah.
think that piece is like that's also why I'm going back to school to do my master's degree in neuroscience because I'm like,
Which
well,
is
what is
awesome.
that? How do I get help? How do I help others to understand like that tipping point literally is the catalyst for
Mm-hmm.
like growth for the rest of your life, you know?
And
Anyway.
like that, your statement that really hit the taking your medicine. And that is a huge part. Like you don't want to have to force things, but some things you do because like I do this taste buds when it comes to nutrition. People are like, well, I don't like the taste of that. I'm like, of course not. You're so used to all these other sweets. This carrot does not taste sweet to you right now. You start cutting out all this refined sugar. This carrot is going to start tasting sweeter to you. Your taste buds will adapt. And they give me that skeptical look. I'm like, they adapted to what you've been eating. They're going to adapt to anything you start doing. And it does start to change like what you're
Yeah.
craving. Like when I'm eating super what I call healthy on my part, that's when I crave chocolate. I don't crave chocolate any other time. And so I'll
Mm,
do more dark chocolate because my cravings, because I'm cutting out certain things, like it changes what you crave and your taste buds do change and they do adapt. So when
yes.
someone's like, well, I don't like the taste of that. Well, yeah, because you're used to this. Let's try this and see what happens. Worst case
Mhm.
scenario, it doesn't work. But best case scenario, it does. And you start eating healthier and you have a healthier system and you're able to have more energy and get those blood markers down, like the cholesterol and all that. Like, yeah.
Mhm.
So it's you got to try trial and error is a lot also. I know that's another tangent, but
Yes.
I'm like, you got to try to find out what works for you. You won't know until you try it.
Yes. And I think that's a big piece of in terms of the work you do and the work I do. Um, eh, Everyone wants that quick fix, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they come to you and thinking like, oh, she'll just fix things for me and she'll whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you a meal plan. This is not how this works. What I'm going to support you with is figuring out what works best for your body. But I think that's a big uh struggle, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of the people that come to me, or that I'm sure with you too. But just in terms of health and wellness, the health and wellness sphere in general, is that this does not happen overnight. Like
Mm-hmm.
your body is unbelievably amazing in terms of adapting and finding homeostasis. So refinding balance. So when you actually figure out what your body is imbalanced with, and then you give the nutrients to it, it doesn't just like the next day you're like, oh, I'm a new person. It's like it takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
The systems take time to work. If you think about gears, right, in any sort of machine, and our machine is so much more complex and nuanced and sensitive than that in terms of our bodies. And so I think that's another piece too, is like this takes time. And we need to start normalizing the time that it takes for support that we are seeking from your perspective too, Renee, but also mine. It takes time. Like people feel like 4 sessions and then it's no problem and my life is fixed. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're like your body, I don't dictate how long your body takes to respond, and I don't have control over your stress levels and like whatever other factors might come in and disrupt even the work that we're starting to do together. So I think it's more about understanding that this is a journey, that this
Mm-hmm.
is like, and nobody likes to hear me say that, everybody hates it, and maybe we need to change that word. I don't know, you can help me with this, but like
But
I don't
I,
know,
yeah, no one, like I tell people, if you want a quick weight loss, don't come to me because I'm
yeah.
not going to help you there. And you're so right. It's the quick fixes. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, that it's just not one thing. Like I'm a huge advocate for physical activity and the outdoors on mental health. And I've seen people comment that making jokes or like they say, oh, just go run and your depression will be fine. I'm like, no, it's not that. It's not a one step solution. It's not the like that quick fix. You just do this and everything is going to be fine. Nutrition, I'm a huge advocate for nutrition on mental health as well. But that's not going to solve everything. It's a piece of the pie. Everything is the piece of the pie. And you were talking about earlier about looking at systems. You've got to look at everything and start incorporating a little bit here, a little bit there. Because if you try to incorporate too many things at one time, it's overwhelming and it just give up, right? So you look at the exercise, you look at the outdoors, you look at your nutrition. What are you putting in your body? How is your body responding to nutrition? How's your stress level? What's going on at home? Like you start looking at your blood markers. Like you've got to kind of start looking at everything and making it part of it. So that's why I'm like, when I first started off in counseling, I remember getting the sheet of like foods that help with anxiety and depression. And I was told by my supervisor that I couldn't hand that out because it wasn't proven. And the more and more I see nowadays, and keep in mind, this was like 2 decades ago, that please jump in here, but I'm seeing a lot more of a direct cause and effect to emotion and food. It's not the one thing that's going to solve everything, but it's that piece that's going to help you, that there is starting to find cause and effect between a direct correlation between the two, just like exercise does help, but it's not the end all be all.
Oh, I think it's the end all be all, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think move. And I don't like calling it exercise. I call it movement because I think exercise has like a
gym connotation. Like I have to be a gym rat.
Like it's like there's weight and there could be trauma around that. So I think it's movement. And I do talk about this with my kids too. Like my son recently was actually he had the stomach flu. It was not pretty. But even on those days, I was like, we need to move because the only way your immune system moves is if you move. Your immune system is stagnant. It doesn't have a pump. Like if you think about your cardiovascular system, your heart is the pump. It pumps your blood. It has an electrical stimulation that pumps. Your immune system does not have that. So if you don't move your body, I don't care how sick you are. Well, I mean, I do care how sick you are because that's not applicable to everyone. But
I'm tracking you. Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So but I think it's more about, yes, he had the stomach flu. He was throwing up for a long period of time. I didn't ask him to move in that period of time. When he was more stable, we went outside and we looked at the sky and we stood in our backyard and we walked around the house and we moved our body. So it's not about like this extreme thing of like, you need to be at the gym lifting, I don't know, excessive weight. It's not about that. It's about movement, definitely. Because that's an important support. And I think that's something that's underestimated. And I think something that it's like this contrast that we see in social media all the time where like, if you're not, especially with women, I think there's been a big push around like lifting heavy weights and like, I don't know, doing all the strength training and doing all of these things. And I appreciate it. But at the same time, we're missing the accessibility to people who have never done that or don't even know how to start that. Like, how do we even get into that? And that's where like, that's something that I also support with is like, you don't have to do what you see that is expected of you. Let's look at it from your point of view and what your life looks like and what you have access to. And then let's start building from there.
I did a podcast episode on that.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I do talk about that because with women, like
so important.
I'm full blown menopause. I've gone through menopause. I'm on the other side now. And I am such a huge advocate for strength training. And strength training doesn't mean you have to go to the gym and be like the super grunt, like heavy, super things. It's just resistant training. And you can do those at home because the resistance training helps build the muscle mass because as we lose our estrogen, right, it starts to negatively impact our bones and increasing that muscle mass reduces chances of osteoporosis. Well, you can increase muscle mass at home. You don't have to go to the gym. It's just resistance training. You can use your body weight. You can use a gallon of water, a milk jug, something like there's some things you can do on your own, just a baby step in that's going to make a difference for you.
Yes.
So
I love that. I love that. I love that. And I think that's a big piece because I think everybody, especially with, I don't know how you find this, you tell me, but from my perspective, people who come to me are like, I don't even know what a functional nutritionist does. Like, and they're just afraid that I'm going to tell them to eat kale 24/7, right? Like, no, that's not what I do. The primary focus of what I do is like we add in, we look at your whole life, we figure out where we can support you, what might be missing in terms of supporting. And I think especially for women, there's so many, especially postmenopausal, that particular age group, I think is like went through like, oh gosh, so many different things like, oh, the carb craze where like carbs were, I don't know, you just ate bagels 24/7 because there was no fat in it, like the anti-fat thing, like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So like this sort of like just re-educating around a lot of that and helping them understand this, but also just this idea, like you don't, there's also in social media, if they're attached to it, the lift heavy piece. Yes, if you have lifted heavy your whole life, if you have been someone who has been an athlete, great, lift heavy because you know how to do it. But I don't ever expect anyone to go into a gym and then suddenly do all the weight training that we're supposed to do and then eat all the protein because most likely we're not digesting it to begin with
Mm-hmm.
all at the same
I
time.
see it as lift heavy for you.
Right?
Like it's in
Oh, I
quotation
love that.
marks. And it
Yes.
is, it's that perspective. We kind of talked
Yeah.
about it earlier, and we may even talked about it when you and I were just chatting the other day too. It's
Mhm.
like, how do you perceive heavy? Well, have like when
Yeah.
I want, because I want my clients to lift heavy, but I want to lift heavy for them. I want them to
Yes.
have that resistance. Their
Yeah.
resistance is going to be different than my resistance because I've been a gym rat. And so I
Yeah.
don't want them to lift like me. I want them to lift for them. Like in that body weight exercises is if it's heavy for you, boom, that's where we're going.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna say this one other thing too. Um, you sound like like I don't like classifying myself as a gym rat, but I am definitely a gym rat. But I think the reason I am a gym rat, okay, why I love getting up every morning is because of the community that has been built within my gym. My gym is
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. It's amazing. It's like I work out every single day with a whole bunch of moms. It's a big gym. There's like there's a lot of, I don't know, you have to sign up early. And so like we all take care of each other. We save each other's spots. We do all this stuff. And it's more about the community of what's happening than it is actually about the actual functional thing. Like the actual like I'm going to lift heavy today and I'm going to do this for that. Like and I think that's where I'm always looking for within my own work with my clients is like what's your why?
Mm-hmm.
The
Definitely.
gym to me, I get up at a stupid hour every morning, not because I feel like I have to. It's because I want to see those people. I want to be there. And they ask me like, where were you yesterday? Not in an intimidating way or a negative way, but we giggle, right? And we get to have conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the places, especially as an entrepreneur, like a solo entrepreneur that I don't have access to all the time. So this is like the highlight of my day. Obviously, I have wonderful children and all of the other stuff going on, but like
It's your
this
outlet.
is my
It's
time.
mm-hmm.
This is my thing. And so the gym to me has become more about the connection, the with the giggles we have, the fun we have, and also like, someone else who challenges me. My gosh, there is a woman who is, I think she's in mid 70s and she lifts heavier than I do. And it's not about just lift heavier, but it's about like, wow, like she just takes on whatever. And I love that inspiration, it's more about that than it
Mm-hmm.
is about just being there and
Yeah.
just doing the thing. Like you got to find your why. Why am I here?
I'm a
Right?
big, huge advocate for the why. Like after I have my clients define their goals, I have them go through and define their whys. And the whys have to be meaningful. It can't be like, well, I want to lose weight because I want to be skinny. No, we need to find another why behind that. Something that's meaningful because that's what's going to get you out of bed. That's what's going to help you mentally to stick with things and
Hmm.
improve both mentally and physically. I'm huge with that one. And I loved how you said, and I call my clients out on this a lot, you change from have to want to. And I'm a huge like I don't ever want to say I have to or especially I should. No, it's I
Mm.
want to because that changes all up in here and how we
And then
view things.
because is the because, like, I
Hmm.
want to do this because, and then the because is like this, what is feeding their soul? Like, and I think that's where your work is incredible. And that's what we're always looking for is like, that is the difference. That's the shift. But then we have this because, and the why, but then when we get to 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and we're exhausted, and I've already done the because for the day, like I've been, and I'm still exhausted. It's like, we need to start understanding what our capacity is at
Hmm.
the end of the day, even when we do have the because. Anyways, I didn't mean to put a damper on the because, but I always am thinking about that. It's like we can have all the because at the morning and all the reasons why and like be so motivated. We're like, oh my gosh. And then we get to the end of the day and it's like, why can't I just do this? Like I did all this at 9 a.m. or whatever it is, but why can't I do it now? And then that's where the shame comes in. And that's where we start to like pull each other down or like pull ourselves down. It's really, that's kind of like where, sorry, that's where my brain goes because I'm always thinking about that. I'm like, great, this is amazing. These are your wins, but like, where are what is happening the rest of the day? you know?
Yes, definitely. This has been actually a great conversation, and because of time, I'm actually going to wrap it up, but I really
Hmm.
think I need to have you back on so we can talk about different topics again. So,
Yeah,
I have
I
another
would love.
thought for that one. But where can listeners find you?
So Instagram is kind of like my major hub. So it's
Okay.
just at Amy Jones Nutrition, or my website, which is just,
Nutrition.
amyjonesnutrition.com.
Okay.
So keep it simple, but that's kind of like where my major hubs are. I'm in a lot of different places, but yeah, that's where they can access. And you can just send me a DM or send me a message, and we can chit chat. And I have a lot of other options in terms of like working one to one. I also have a system that I have built, which again I have to preface with this like this is like some things that we've kind of put together in terms of my experience and my time working with other clients of things that have worked for them and worked for me.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of like this podcast type thing. It's called WTFs for dinner. Because often that's what I think about every single day. But there's an option there. Um, so there's different ways that we can connect, but I think, I'm a big one-to-one person because I think it's really about really understanding the whole person before we do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I see so many people, they always tell you kind of go into group work, but I'm like, as I'm thinking about fitness and certain things, group work is really hard for me because everyone's so individual and I want to make sure they get what they need. So definitely, I love that your big part. So you do have the one-on-one, which is awesome. They can check you out. And what's this was it WTF for dinner?
WTFs for dinner. I'm not going to say the term,
Yes.
obviously.
I think we all know. Okay, I think we're good there.
But I think that's like literally, and the reason it's named that is because I literally spent so many years of my life, and I still, off the cuff, if I don't follow my own system sometimes, because systems break down. And I think this is not about perfection.
Hmm.
It's a system. It's like literally, it's not even a system. Like, I don't even think that's the right word. I think it's more like, here's a bunch of things that I have noticed that have worked for clients that I have worked with who have ADHD in order to help, I don't know, solve some of the challenges that we might have in terms of feeding ourselves,
Hmm.
in terms of setting up our kitchen, setting up our fridge, uh, preparing meals on a regular basis. Like one of the big pieces in there is something called the ADHD. I call it my ADHD meal matrix, which is just like you choose from categories. So we assemble meals instead of like trying to make this beautiful, whatever traditional thing that we're told we're supposed to do.
Hmm.
Like it's just like you have pieces of meals. And I think this is really great for kids as well. And they're already there because we figured out how to meal prep them in advance. That doesn't require the 6 hour meal prep on a Sunday. And
Hmm.
then we just assemble, we just like throw stuff on a plate and then we eat it and we know, and we don't have to worry like, oh, I don't have anything because all of that would require a lot of effort. So then I'm going to I don't know, call Uber. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to do whatever I'm going to do because it's too hard. So I think it's about breaking down this too hard. How do we do that? And in that system, there are options like, and they don't work for everyone, but there are options within that. So
Oh, we are going
yeah.
to have an episode on that one, you and I.
Okay.
Yeah, because that is one of the reasons I was kind of like, okay, we have to bring this to end because you and I, like we, even before the podcast, you and I can just keep going down different
I
roads
know.
and and I love it. I love it. So definitely, and I love that aspect of like that piece and how we talked a little bit how I just prepped the salads, but you took it a step further and piece it better. And in fact, as I'm thinking about, it, it's kind of what I do, but I shop differently because of that, because it's just me. But
Mm,
I work a lot with like busy, active women that have a lot on their plates and talking. And I
mm.
would love to do an episode on this where we just talk a little bit more about it, about how to make things a little bit simpler around mealtime. And I also always bring in the fact like your dinner doesn't have to be your biggest meal either. Like,
No, it
and
should actually be your smallest meal in terms
yeah.
of like, you know,
Hmm.
uh, so
But
many different things, hormone regulation, like your circadian rhythm, like all of those things. It actually should be your smallest. Your biggest
hmm
should be your lunch
hmm
for sure.
definitely. So
Mhm.
I'd love to get into that more. Okay. So they can find you at Amy Jones Nutrition. All right. One last piece of what would be one thing, like something that you learned in your own like health and wellness business, your journey through this whole thing that you think that you'd like to either tell your younger self or someone else who's
Oh,
beginning this journey? Like,
okay. I think it would have to be any advice you get from anyone else, me, whoever, is only helpful if or when it fits the person who has to use it.
mm-hmm,
And it sounds so obvious, right? Like, but I think we get so much outside advice of what we should be doing, the shoulds again,
mm-hmm,
right? Especially in health and wellness. And we skip over this, like, oh, I just should, and like the should, and we just skip and we're like, whatever. We give people strategies that might be like technically sound, right? So I talked a lot today, even some of the science and talked about all this stuff. But that doesn't mean that any of what I talked about today actually is going to fit your schedule, your energy, your budget, your family demands. Oh my gosh, we didn't even talk about sensory needs. That's a whole other piece too. Um, Emotional load, or what season of life you're in.
mm-hmm,
Okay. So when the plan that you think should work doesn't work, this is where we blame ourselves. And that
definitely.
blame is literally what makes us stop, like after the first or second or third day of whatever that thing is that we're trying to do. So I think it's not, I think it's like no one is struggling because they don't care. I think that's a really big piece too. I think that applies to everything in our lives.
Mm-hmm,
They're usually struggling because the support that they have, I don't know, looked for or like elicited, that's the right word, uh, hasn't been designed around the actual conditions of their life. That
mm-hmm,
is my biggest pet peeve. It's you can elicit, support from so many different types of practitioners, doctors, whatever it is. But like, if it's not actually designed for your life, or there's some resistance there, like there's something that's not working, it's a clear sign. Like we need to look at it in a different way. You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean?
Definitely. Definitely.
Mhm.
Yes, and I definitely believe that because like everything works at some level, but you have to tweak it to fit you. Like
You
pretty much
so
every
perfect.
diet works. Every diet helps you lose weight, but if you don't like the
Good.
foods, if it doesn't fit in your schedule, if you don't have the time for it, it's not going to help you. Like you've got to find one that fits your taste buds, the one that fits into your schedule, your lifestyle, your energy level, one that fits you. So I definitely everything you said, I love it. So that is great. All right. Well, thank you again, Amy. This has been awesome. I can't wait for us to do this again. I know we've got
Oh,
more. So, with that in mind, as we come back together, I know we have a couple topics we'd like to talk about, but if anyone has like any ideas, something they would like to know more about, reach out to me or reach out to Amy at Amy Jones Nutrition. And I'll have both of our informations in the show notes as well. So just reach out and let us know if there's something you would like us to talk about, or because I would love to do this again if you would come back on. please.
Oh, I'd be so honored. Thank you.
So,
I would love to.
all right, great. Thanks for listening, everyone.